Welcome to Cougar Mountain Software Denali Essential Training.
Again, welcome everyone to Cougar Mountain Software Mastering Communication webinar. My name is Ben Cornett, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar. Cougar Mountain Software is pleased to bring to you a leading expert with interpersonal communication you're seeing on the screen. Today we're pleased to introduce Jim Stevens from Sandler Training. Jim has been recognized globally as a communication expert specializing in executive consulting and productivity training. I've worked with Jim, and he focuses on helping others succeed by removing communication barriers. Jim has been a Sandler trainer since 1999. Jim, welcome.
Appreciate you having me as part of this program today. I'm very grateful for Cougar Mountain for sponsoring this. Today's topic is mastering the art of communication, which is kind of funny because you're sure not going to master this art in a 20, 30-minute session. The key to great communication is to recognize it isn't so much an art as it is a science. We learn to be great communicators by, number one, learning how to listen. Most of us do not listen to understand. We listen to respond. Communicating with intentionality is taking our message and intentionally formatting it in a construct that the listener can understand. Think of it as dialects. We all speak a different dialect that's defined by how we were brought up. And the way we were brought up is different, and the way we speak is different. So if I can take time to basically understand where someone else is coming from and speak in their dialect, my message is going to be far more impactful. So today we're going to introduce you to a model that will help you understand how people communicate. As I said earlier, most people don't listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply, because typically we're busy thinking about what do we say next. Being a great listener is about clearing your mind to understand. Many of you online today are great listeners, but nobody would know it because you may not be active in your listening. So some of the things that we train our clients through Sandler is to understand how to present their message and make sure the other person understands you have received their message. The challenge with communication is that we all send 6 distinct messages. What I meant to say, what I actually said, what the other person hears, what they thought they heard, what they said about what they heard, and what the other person said about what I said. So you got these mixed messages that are coming out, and it's no wonder communication is so difficult. We need to crystallize our skill and narrow our focus so we're sure that the message we intended is the message that was received, and we achieve that by using the communication feedback loop. The feedback loop is basically saying, what I heard you say is, fill in the blank, and would you mind playing back what you heard me say? If you're looking for a way to improve your communications right away, take those 2 phrases and make those a key performance indicator that you do daily. If you plan on 5 times a day saying these words, would you mind playing back what you heard me say, just so I know we're on the same page? That's going to make a profound difference in your ability to communicate. And if you also 5 times a day play back what you're hearing, would it be okay if I play back what I heard just to make sure we're on the same page? That's the way we get active in listening and we accomplish that communication feedback loop. So of all the things we train, and we have over 1,000 hours of training that we provide to our clients, we're going to be focusing today on the topic of how do I know who I'm talking with. So knowing who I'm talking with starts with reading people. So we're going to give you a model, DISC. The DISC model helps you understand conceptually how people communicate. And we're going to start by practicing on you. You have attachments in the webinar that will allow you to download this content. This is a standalone handout on reading people. And I want you to just take yourself through this as we go through it together. So are you more fast-paced, outgoing, or are you more reserved and deliberate? So make a choice. Now, if you happen to be fast-paced and outgoing, are you more direct, assertive, bottom line, or are you more enthusiastic, motivational, or optimistic? If you are the first, direct, you would be considered high D. If you're more enthusiastic, high I. How about those of you who are reserved and deliberate? Are you calm, empathetic listener? You would be considered high S. Are you logical, accurate, and diplomatic? You would be considered high C. I'm going to explain what these initials mean in a moment. And you can see as you go down a little further, you can refine to a secondary level what your secondary dialect, if you will, is when you're communicating with people. So the DISC model says basically this: people can be read by what they do and say. You know people who are task fueled. They're very focused on tasks and not very focused on people. On the other hand, you know people who are people focused. So if you got somebody task focused, you know you're dealing with a C or D. If people are people focused, they're going to be either an S or an I. So to secondarily refine this, we look at, are people active? They're going to be more that D and I. Or are they more reserved? They'll be that S and C. And as you understand this model and get familiar practicing it, I'm going to give you a homework assignment to empower you to practice this a bit. What you'll find evolving is a new awareness of things that you can observe actually very quickly. Even just on the phone, you can hear whether someone is bottom line, let's get down to business, or they're people-oriented. The beauty of understanding and quickly discerning the style of person is it lets you modify your style to meet them. So let me introduce you to the dominant folks. So dominant folks, these are very decisive, tough, demanding. They're the kind of people that make a decision and they make it a good decision. Their motto is, if it's not broken, break it, because they like change. They love change happening under pressure. They appear as though they don't care. Their greatest fear is being taken advantage of or a loss of control. In your mind's eye, you can even jot down a couple of people you know who might fit that dominance personality type. In the current election, we have two primary candidates that are both dominant style. The next style is the I style. I stands for influencer. So these influencers they're the party animals. They're very social, talkative. They're going to talk with their arms, animated. They like to have a good time. They're very concerned about how other people feel, how other people think, and under pressure, they're very unorganized. They have a lot of words, and they use a lot of words. They fear being rejected, and that need for approval drives them to constantly seek what other people think of them. Statistically, in our culture, only 14% of the population is that dominant style. So if you go back a page, 14% are dominant style, while if you look at that influencer style, there's a 32%. So the majority of the people in the United States tend to be influencers. The third category are the steady relators, steadiness, S styles. S people they're doers. They are very patient, loyal, modest. These are people that are terrific helpers. And because of that, they often take on too much and are taken advantage of because under pressure, they're too willing. If you're a S style, a good indication is you'll be working and somebody will say, hey, could you help me with XYZ? And before you know it, the word yes has come out of your mouth and you stop to think about it. I'm doing their job for them. That means I'm not doing my job. And I'm such a loyal person, I'll put their work ahead of myself. And I end up burning the midnight oil because I was too willing. They fear change, so they have a high need for pleasing other people. They're people pleasers, and they fear change. They fear that loss of security. So these steady relators, they represent 27% of the population. 27%. And then we have the C styles. These are the analytics. C styles, C stands for compliance. Not in the terms of obedience, but compliance in the terms of following a set of structured rules. They like things to be logical. Under pressure, they're overly critical. They will think through things too much. They delay. It can look like procrastination, but what's happening is analysis paralysis. They don't want to make a mistake, so they're going to spend too much time focusing on getting something done. Under their greatest fear is criticism of their work. So the next couple of slides help us understand, if you think of a neutral, I'm not sure what to do with this. If you think of a neutral position down the middle, somebody who is increasingly reserved, S's then C's, and increasingly social, D's and then I's. So these couple of pages give you a benchmark under which you can look at how the styles deal with things like risk-taking, the approach to change, emotions, and how they view the world big picture. Let's look at the next page. When we look at overextension, we see these D's, very decisive. Their weakness is they become too impatient. The I's are outgoing, and under pressure, they talk too much. The S's, stability, they tend to be slow to change, and the C's, quality-driven, under pressure, they become nitpicky. So how does this matter? What does this matter, and how do I use this? Well, first, if I can recognize that the life approach of somebody who is in that I, that yellow quadrant, is fun and social, and I am in that blue quadrant where high standards and correctness matter, the yellow side drives me crazy because they just wing it, and here I am being very diligent in processing. So if I'm going to communicate to someone who's different from me, I need to adjust my style to reflect their style. When it comes to assets to the company, the assets that a high S offers is they tend to build deep and lasting relationships. They're a careful listener. They're warm and sincere. And contrast that with these high dominant people who are really fairly aloof. They like change. They see people as forgive me, but it's almost a necessary evil. Instead of loving people, they see people as the tool to help accomplish tasks. A very different worldview. So if I'm a dominant person and I'm trying to communicate with somebody who is a steady relator, I'm going to have to slow down. They won't take me serious if I don't focus on the importance of people. If they think I see people as tasks or a necessary evil, there's no trust there. I need to adapt my style to accommodate them. If I'm a dominant person communicating with a high I, those influencers, they talk a lot. The dominant person is thinking, oh my gosh, can't we get to the end? Do you have to use so many words? And their face belies their impatience. So you have to take a deep breath and recognize the best way I can relate to others is by taking time to really build the relationship. Here's a reality. Jot this down. People like people who are like them. People like people who are like them. They trust people who are like them. Therefore, if I am like someone else, the probability of them trusting me will increase. There's a good chance that in your workplace you're having some level of conflict with someone, and I would bet that that conflict has its root in the communication style. And the communication style of that person just rubs you the wrong way. Conversely, you've got people in your workplace that you just connect with very quickly. You have a deep relationship, and it doesn't take time to warm up. You get each other. That's someone who shares your same basic communication style. In making a business function at its very best, the key is communication. Here's what I've learned over my years as a business owner and a consultant. If you boil down every problem that any business has to its root cause, that root cause is a failure to clearly communicate. And communication is a two-way street. Communicating a clear message and understanding clearly the message that was communicated. Too often, here's what happens. We see people, we're talking to someone, and if you're a manager, you're talking to someone, you're telling them what you want them to do, they're nodding their head, you think that means yes, you part ways, 2 days later, they didn't do what you thought they should do, they did something else, and you're thinking, what's the problem here? Am I dealing with somebody who just doesn't get it? Well, yes, you are. And why don't they get it? Because you didn't make the message clear in a way that they can understand it. So we look at some of the things that make that relationship liabilities. Those include those high Ds. They're not very good listeners. They have their low patience causes them to be arrogant, pushy. They don't tend to wait for responses. They just blow and go. Those high Is, they lack focus, and they tend to be inconsistent in follow-up and communication. High S's, they're slow to change, slow to adapt. They don't speak their mind. They're the ones that are in the meeting, remain quiet, but they probably have the most valuable information to share. So it's incumbent on us listeners to pull out of those S's and C's what they're thinking, getting them to communicate, because the C's, they're not going to say what they're thinking because they may not have it quite right in their head. So you have to help pull that out. So now that we know these things, what do we do with it? Well, first, let's spend the next week practicing. So by practice, I want you to take that worksheet on reading people, and I want you to pick, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's kids, loved ones. Perhaps it's doing it with your team members. Take them through that analysis to figure out what their natural style is. That's step number one. Step number two, modify with intentionality your style. If you'll modify your style to better fit, so that means if you're a high S talking to someone who's a high I, you're going to have to be faster paced. If you're a high D talking to someone who's high C, you're going to have to be more focused on the facts and the analytics. And then grade yourself. How am I doing? Scale of 1 to 10. Pick 2 or 3 relationships. Work hard during this next week before we meet again to hone your communication skills and see if you can't take this model and allow it to help you read people and modify your communication in a way that really helps you make your message clear and helps them understand you. In our next session, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the specifics of each style. So I'd love it if you'd come up with your own stories, observe some of the things that you see happening, and learn how to apply this model. And we have a special offer for the clients of Cougar Mountain that involves a team, up to 10 people, executive analysis on their communication style, where we will use one of our tools to analyze your team, and we'll spend an hour or two with you and the team helping learn some of the specifics of communication. So with that said, I'm going to throw it back to Ben. Ben, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your learning community with the clients at Cougar Mountain.
I appreciate it, Jim. And just so everyone knows, at the bottom of in the GoToWebinar, you can download the handouts that Jim mentioned. Also, we'll send out an email with follow-up with the attachment of Jim's slides, as well as invite you to attend our next webinar. The follow-up series is next week, Thursday, October 20th, and it's at 10:30 a.m. Also, we did record this webinar. If you want to access a copy of the webinar, you can access it at www.cougarmtn.com. Again, Jim, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks you all.